Fine Minds and Jellyfish. Welcome back to Knives, I guess, and I swear to God, it was like that when I got there. But do me a favor and hit that like button or no one will call you pretty today. And on our last live stream, we went in on the Divo Growler. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're holding because it'll bother you if I don't. And you know I spoil you. So, first things first and most importantly, the pocket clip is tip up, which is the Lord's carry. It's a nice wire pocket clip. It is reversible. We got the white G10. We got a thumb hole. Let's flick the hole. And we got right about 3.25 inches of 154 cm steel, give or take. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, if you've been here for a minute, you know I was already a huge fan of this thing after carrying the prototype for a little while. And having the prototype, you know, I didn't want to beat on it, so I really wanted to get a production version. And at Blade Show, this one popped up, apparently the last one, and I managed to scoop it up for $100. Absolutely delighted to do that. So I carried it for a week. It did everything that I expected it to. It did everything the prototype did. No fuss, no muss, no sweat. So, really looking forward to Cardboard Slayer on it. You know, this thing, I was able to go in there and wail on it without feeling bad on it. But, you know, feeling bad about it, I was able to put a new edge on it and sharpen it without feeling bad about it. I like leaving my prototypes as I got them. So we had a great time with that. Now, first thing we're going to do is we're going to go out to the car hole and I will show you the pile of cardboard that came off the factory edge. Let's go over there now. Alright folks, welcome back to the car hole, and this right here is the pile of cardboard that came off of the factory edge on the Divo Growler. It's not huge, but we run into this with factory edges all the time. Okay, now that you've seen that, that was a fairly small pile. Now, we started with a 188 on the tester. I'll show you the tester later. But we started with a 188 on that, and we went for about an hour, and we got a 387 in the center and a 425 up towards the front here, which there's some weirdness there that we'll talk about. And then, you know, we stopped to sharpen about 5-10 minutes later. We hit a 430 to a 440 depending on where we tested. But we were testing back here because that's where I'm used to the edges being. Let's get to some better light. We were testing back here, which is where I'm used to edges wearing. The edge wear was happening up here. So it wasn't cutting, so we went ahead and stopped and sharpened it, even though we had low numbers on the tester. And we sharpened it down to a 132 to 138, depending on where we tested, which is not as low as I like, but we hogged off a lot of material and we got it down there. So it felt like the factory edge was already at 17 degrees per side. I didn't have to hog off a ton of material to get there. It was easy to sharpen up. Very easy to sharpen up and take it to a high polish. So let's go back out to the car hole again and I will show you the pile that came off of the 17 degrees per side brand Spanker's new edge. Here you go. And we find ourselves back in the car hole. And this is a pile of cardboard we got off of a 17 degree per side edge on the Divo Growler. It's a much bigger pile. That's 3 and some change times the pile from the last one on the factory edge. Okay, so as you can see, that was a much bigger pile. That was a lot of cardboard. You know, it's not quite like cutting with 3V or the M390 that we cut with, or Magna Cut, but it still did really good. And of course we saw the thing where the factory edge dies quickly. A lot of knives do that. That's part of why we test these things the way we do. And when we need to stop and sharpen and we're able to, we go ahead and do that. That 17 degrees per side edge, the way I set that bevel up, you know, I made the bevel a bit wider than it was from the factory, like a good bit wider. It really took off and came into its own. So let's check out the timeline of events and you know, we'll see how this all went down. So at the 1 hour mark, we hit a 326 up here and a 388 back here. Now, we went for another hour and we were picking up some rough cuts and I couldn't figure out exactly where to measure. So in the center here, I moved around a lot. 351, 354, 419, 588, that 588, 388, sorry. The way I write is terrible and it's hard to read my own writing sometimes. That was a 388. But we got up here to the front and we got a 400. So we kept going, and after another hour, we hit a 414 and a 424 here, and we hit a 470 up here. up in the front of the belly. So we went for another hour, and we hit a 609. At the 4-hour mark, we hit a 609 in the front center, and then towards the center here, like just the front of that belly, hit a 609. And then we hit a 457 and a 492 back here towards the center. And then we cut for right about 10 more minutes, 15 minutes, and the edge was just dead. The edge was dead, and all of our cuts started looking like this right here. They started getting bad. I probably could have pushed it a little bit longer, but the amount of resistance on those cuts was gigantic. It was taking a lot of effort, and the edge was toast. Once we hit that 609, like you get over 600 on the tester, your edge is devastated. You gotta stop and sharpen. So, first off, seeing the edge wear happen here was a bit unexpected. That's part of why the numbers that I got back here weren't making much sense. All of the wear was up here. But, man, it was a pretty good performance. I'm not mad at it at all. And I will say, the beef on this thing belies the sliciness. This thing is extremely slicey. When it was sharp, there was very, very little resistance on the cuts. And, you guys saw how the cardboard is cut up in those piles. I like to keep the whole strip of cardboard, the whole length of it, tied together just a little bit so it's easier to clean up and it's easier to pick up and put back in the box after I take you guys out to the car hole. Which, I gotta tell you, no one shows you that side of it. Picking all that cardboard up and putting it back up after the testing, it sucks. But with this case, it went all the way through with so little resistance that I couldn't stop the cut in time. So it just went straight through. And even when the edge started getting worn out, it was still slicier than a lot of the things that we've tested. So, I love a good slicey knife, and this nails it. You got a tall, flat grind into a small flat here and a swedge here. It slices. It slices like a bucket of hot damn. And the ergonomics on this thing, oh my God, the ergonomics. So we did break this up into 2 sessions because I'm still not completely adapted to my work schedule yet. But on both of them, the ergonomics presented 0 problems. The only thing I felt was a little bit of the pressure from the push cuts making the back of the knife press into here again and again and again and again. Outside of that, there were no hot spots, there were no issues, nothing felt painful. It was very, very, very nice. I'm not sure how much work Kevin put into this design as far as testing and flogging it and everything else, although I will say the prototype that I have of the Growler XL suggests that it has been put to work. But my God, the ergonomics are fantastic. I am blown away by those. That was the most welcome surprise out of the whole thing, because the ergonomics were the one thing I was worried about. I figured the 154 CM was going to be some good steel. It was going to handle some cutting. We've done 154 CM before, and we've gotten some kind of mixed results. But as we've been tracking this a lot more carefully and taking tests on it in real time and, all that, we've been getting a more realistic look at what 154 CM does, and it performed well compared to the other 154 CM that we've done. So I'm real happy with that. But I was worried about the ergonomics just because, as you can see, it's a thin boy. And there's not a gigantic chamfer in between the scales right here, but there's not space between the scales either. So it was going to be one way or the other. But there wasn't enough space between the scales for my fingy right here to fall in there and get beaten to death by that gap right there. So, it did fantastic on the ergonomics. It's like this was designed specifically for me. It's like this was designed with me specifically in mind, which I am blown away by. This has everything I like in one place at one time. The only thing that I might do differently is dial it back on the jimping on the back here, but even that, it's not a problem. I'm guessing if you got to do a scalpel cut or something like that, the jimping would be nice. But outside of that, for me, jimping doesn't serve a lot of a purpose. It really doesn't. Some guys like their jimping. I could care less one way or the other. But that's the only thing I would do different here is maybe get rid of the jimping or dial it back a little bit. But because the jimping did catch putting it in the pocket a few times. That's the only complaint that I had. It got caught up in my pocket a couple of times. But, outside of that, I am so thoroughly impressed. And I tell you, when the Divo Growler XL drops, I am praying to God I'm able to get my hands on one and get in on that drop right away, because I really, really want to carry and flog the big version. I want to carry and flog the big boy. Right now, I am carrying the prototype, but that means I'm not beating on it and I'm not putting it through hell. This thing got put through hell, and it did really, really good. Now, we sharpened her back up again, and we got her down to 100 on the sharpness tester. I mean, there is no resistance there. That is a clean cut. So we're going to get the edge sharpness tester out. I will show you what kind of number we get off of that. I'm going to wipe this thing off real quick. But the edge sharpness tester was kindly provided by you folks through your channel memberships and super chat donations, what have you. So I'll always be grateful for that support. Thank you so much for making that happen. And just in case you haven't seen one of these before, the way this works is it measures the number of grams of force it takes to cut through the wire on this calibrated test clip. The lower the number, the better. That number is going to wander around a bit. So what we see here may be a little higher or a little lower than 100. But let's see what we got. 92! All right, and before people start complaining, I pressed on that as slowly as I could. All right? A lot of guys will see that pop and they think I pushed through it as fast as I could to fake the numbers. No, I want the highest number I can get out of it. But yeah, that 92 is fantastic. Anything below 120 is fantastic for an edge that it took, because we went all the way up to 3000 grit and we stropped it down to 0.1 microns like we do. But yeah, I mean, it took one hell of an edge. It did fantastic with Cardboard Slayer. I loved carrying it. Like, this is easily in my top 3. Like, my top 3, I've got this. I got my Benchmade Bug Out CF Elite, and then maybe the Hogue Deca with the Magna Cut. And the Benchmade Bug Out can be easily replaced, but the Deca and Magna Cut, just the performance of the steel on that, and once I got the inside of the scales chamfered down, there's that $5 word again. But once I got those chamfered down, it turned into an absolute monster. The Bug Out CF Elite is just a very, very lightweight, competent carry, and there's the complaints about the partial frame. I'm not that worried about it. But, all in, at the end of the day, like I said, it's like this was designed specifically for me. And I could not be happier with this thing. It's a shame that they're no longer in production. And like I said, at Blade Show, I was told I bought the last one. So, good luck finding one on the secondary market. Happy hunting. I know guys that were in the live stream went looking for one, like Blade Binge, everywhere they could think of to pick one up, and had no luck. So maybe some will pop up used on eBay or Blade Binge or something like that. But yeah, I am glad I got this one. I'm glad I got to show it to you guys, and I am so happy with the performance overall. Now, I can't think of anything else to say about this thing that we haven't already covered. So all that being said, thanks for looking at my crap. Subscribers, you guys are awesome. Y'all keep coming in. I appreciate you so, so much. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We got our live streams, regular videos. There's plenty of activities. Comments, I love some feedback. Let me know what you think about this thing. Of course, I have my Amazon shop linked off in the description. You don't have to use it, but it's the easiest way I've found to show you some of the cool stuff I've found in the last couple of months here. And all that being said, y'all have a nice day.